High school teachers of Reddit, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? When you think you are being genius by getting me to talk about random things at the beginning of class instead of teaching, I'm really allowing it to happen. BC, I don't have enough plan to cover a full class. My favorite high school teacher, he taught history, confessed on the last day of my senior year that he always started class by talking about something completely random because he knew none of us were ready to pay attention right when class was supposed to start. Had no idea. It was a really good strategy that made the transition into the lesson a lot less jarring. I knew you were cheating, so I gave you a test with the answers in a different order for the rest of the semester. You clearly weren't very bright to figure it out, and yes, I am that spiteful. It was easier than reporting the cheating. No shit, not high school, but in nursing school one of my classmates purchased the test keys. Made it to the third trimester of the program and come to find out, the professor for that part of our program makes his own exams. Dude dropped out after a week. Bye. One day you're going to come across people who are not being paid to tolerate you, and all of a sudden life is going to become considerably more difficult. I feel like they should be told this in person. I said something like this to a kid with a bad attitude when I was a volunteer tutor, something to the effect of, I don't have to be here, and if you don't want my help it doesn't matter to me. He was shattered, was crying when his mom picked him up. When I saw him again it was a completely different kid, super respectful. I encourage my worst kids as much or more than my favorites because I don't want them back in my class next year. I wonder if that's one of the reasons some of those ever pass the grade. Veiled, they're not my problem now. If you're jacking off in class we can tell. This is a common occurrence. I had a teacher that would say there were only 2 reasons your hands would be moving in your lap and you weren't supposed to be doing either of them in class. It was very obvious when the guys were caught jacking off with how red their faces turned. That we have much better hearing than you assume. We just choose our battles as it pertains to inappropriate comments. And sometimes I pretend not to see the thing you did just because I too found it humorous, and speaking to you about it would only result in me cracking up. It's so funny when they think they're getting away with something, but no, it's just near the end of the day and you're too tired to deal with it. If you're going to eat in class, stop staring at me while you're doing it. You're ratting yourself out. I've already answered this in a comment. The reason the students aren't allowed to eat is because those are the school rules. I have no say in the matter and I won't jeopardize my job for it, especially because it's my first year working there and my supervisor pops in once in a while. Secondly, I do allow water, no drinks allowed either, and I'll let them finish their meal outside before the second bell goes off. Sometimes they even offer me some. And if they are truly hungry, they know this, they can just ask me in the beginning of class to eat outside. I also don't punish them when I catch them, I just politely ask them to put it away and have a laugh. Telling them angrily will just piss them off. See, I'm not a complete monster. I can smell you. Everyone can. Please, for the love of God, use deodorant. 1. Puberty is a smelly ordeal, and a lot of the kids can't help it. 2. Because God forbid it's not their fault, infection, a cultural thing, or improper washing of clothes, you don't want to alienate that student forever. That it's just as weird for me as it is for you when we bump into each other in public. I went on vacation with my then GF, and bumped into a student 3 states over. We both kind of shook our heads no at each other, and kept walking, silently agreeing to not address it. I saw this same student again 2 months later, during the summer, at a concert where they were underage drinking. We just shook our heads at one another again, keeping that same silent agreement. I saw this same student 4 more times during the summer entirely by accident. It was never discussed. I saw my English teacher at the grocery store one. We made eye contact and I nodded. He nodded back. We kept walking. Said nothing about it the next day. Never brought it up. That's proper procedure. I don't care that you came to class stoned. Just stop interrupting class, and for God's sake, don't touch any power tools while you're stoned. I knew a guy that would come into first period stoned. He would always complete his work extremely fast, and accurately too. Then he would just stare at his paper or whatever when he's done. Basically a genius when stoned. I hate when my students come in stoned because it's math. They always make stupid errors when they're high. But I can't get too mad because 1. I used to be high in first period every day, and 2. I smoke as well. The weed smell doesn't magically disappear between the parking lot and my classroom. How do I smell, bro? You're good, me? You're good too. I posted this elsewhere on Thread, but I think it fits here. I told a student he reeked of weed. He did, as he was heading back inside from the soccer fields at the end of lunch. I think he was holding because I smelled fresh bud, but I didn't care enough to check. Just gave him a heads up to be careful. He looked so paranoid when I saw him at the end of the day. Made me chuckle. If I didn't think you would abuse the situation, I would really enjoy being more human and casual around you. I think you are a fun person to be around. This one hits home. I was close with a couple teachers through high school, and would even put in extra effort in those classes. But when the teacher would get to a comfortable level around us, it was easy to forget that they got there because of the effort I put in, and it isn't an excuse to stop trying cause they like you. Yes, I do have favorite students. No, I won't tell you who they are because that would discourage you, but yes, they're probably who you imagine them to be. I hope your students never find out your username. I tell my students that of course every teacher has favorites, but we don't have a quota. There is always room for more. Then I tell them the characteristics I really like in students, like authenticity and perseverance. My gamertag. I usually say there's a policy against it, but there isn't. I just don't want to play Overwatch or whatever with a bunch of relatively good kids who turn into total monsters when they play video games. If I tell the cool ones, it'll get around. Don't do it. It's like when a kid finds out a teacher's cell phone number somehow. Then the whole school calls. I can definitely hear the horrible things you are saying. Yes, I see that you are on the other side of the room. I may be old to you, but I am certainly not deaf. Also, that teenage boy is definitely going to buy you a Big Mac in exchange for oral sex. 100 out 100 times. I hate the texts as much as you do, but everyone just shrugs when I suggest changing them up. I'm sorry they made us keep that awful after book on the list. I genuinely offered to buy them all back from students so I could burn the waste of time that they are. I had an eccentric literature teacher in high school, Dr. Patike, who was required to teach the Odyssey. He absolutely hated it. So much so, he taught us off of the Cliff Notes. He explained how he was teaching it to us under protest, in his very thick Polish accent. Just another example. He organized the class into rows, then gave each person a rank. The first in the row was the captain, and so on. You got promoted or demoted for getting answers right, but also for completely arbitrary reasons. I actually teach middle school rather than high school, but I'll play. I love them a whole bunch. I do actually tell them this, that's not the thing, but goddamn every single middle schooler is an asshole. Like, even the best ones. They're all assholes. You can't help it at that age. Part of the process of being a good middle school teacher is accepting the assholishness and figuring out ways to work with it. Don't worry, guys, your peers, and you, will stop being assholes soon. Most of you, anyway. Also, all the things you think your parents and teachers don't know about? We do. We've done it all. We just would prefer not to think about you doing it because you're much too young. Edit, Suur, you weren't an asshole when you were in middle school. You're the exception. Congratulations, you special person. You win the trophy. I've taught more than 700 kids in my career, but I didn't teach you, so I don't know. A lot of us probably drink, smoke, sleep around, etc. more than you do, and hearing you talking about it and trying to hide it as if it's something we wouldn't know about is richly ironic. Or worse, boast about it like it's something we would never understand. My entire high school's English department came to the same fancy restaurant's bar most weekends together to talk shit about their students. It was an hour across town and not likely the kids from our school would ever be in a fine dining place that far away. I worked there for over a year as part of our wait staff. Waiting fine dining is a killer gig if you know anything about wine. When I was in my early 20s. I loved talking shit about my old classmates and hearing their honest opinions about me after a free bottle of $200 wine. A few off the top of my head. Just because I like you as a person doesn't mean that I won't fail you. Being smart isn't a justification for being lazy, and I can't pass someone that never hands in work. I moved you away from your friends because they were taking you down with them. You have a real future in sports, but you need to pass my class to play them. Your friends were making you fail, and if you don't get to play volleyball, I don't know what kind of future you have in front of you. I wish that the positivity that you get in my class could follow you home. I've met your parents and they are a nightmare. I do my best to encourage you here, but I know that, some days, that just might not be enough. I have never and will never find a student intimidating. That's why I laughed at you when you asked me if I knew who your father was. Yeah, he's the manager of a car dealership. That means nothing to nobody. I had a kid throw a desk at me and, while it scared me in the moment, it didn't make me fear him. One day, you will meet someone who has real power, and I just wish that I could be there to see it. You're unique, you're not special. Set your goals high, but understand that if you change your goals to needs, you will have a lifetime of disappointment. One of the most valuable lessons I can teach you is to fake looking busy. If we're supposed to be working on an assignment or reading or whatever, and you see me coming your way, at the least have a piece of paper on your desk and a pen in your hand and some shit on your paper, and then I won't bother you. If you have nothing going on and can't even be bothered to make it look like you're trying, I'm heading your way. This lesson will be invaluable with eventual bosses someday. That I lied to you when I said I was 40. I was actually only 21 and I was only a couple of years older than you. I've seen you at the club and I've seen you partying. Furthermore, I have run into you in public way more times than you realize, but half the time I run away, the other half the time you catch me before I can. Also, when I was at the mall, the guy you pointed to and asked me if he was my boyfriend was just a random Tinder date I just met. He was definitely not my boyfriend. Your sense of entitlement is most likely acquired from your upbringing, so parent-teacher conferences to discuss your grades aren't going to do shit when the parents just blame us, despite you putting in little to zero effort. To my freshmen, yes, I always know when you didn't do my math because you stayed up late playing Fortnite. You added me as a friend on Epic, so I see that. Also, the amount of homework not done in lower grades when new battle passes come out is so coincidental. To a specific freshman, I support your desire to become a streamer, but editing videos should not keep you away from your homework for a whole week, and your friends always rat you out when you stay home/skip to make/edit those videos. To all high schoolers I teach, you're dumb, but I do love you guys. I'm not stupid, and while I know you cheat on your homework, I don't care, since it's only worth 10% of your grade and you're foregoing the practice you can get before the test. To the 6th graders I teach math to. Dear Lord, you make me cringe so hard I have to take ibuprofen some days. I have so much more, but my lunch break is almost over.